when my brother and I were starting our first company, instead of getting an apartment, we just rented a small office and we slept on the couch.
All right, we are back. Built by Vitality podcast. I am Steve Pinkerton, and I am reunited with my brother,
Philip Lewis.
Where you been?
I've been out on vacation.
Okay. Philip came down with the coronavirus.
Yep.
And he, being the physical specimen that he is, was able to fight it off.
Yep.
Not without a little drama.
A little drama.
You know.
Yeah.
But he did good. I'm proud of him, you know. But he is back.
What was your proudest moment? When you FaceTimed me and I had a wet rag on my head?
I did we have our Friday meetings, and I wanted the numbers that Philip needed to turn in. So I said, Aggie, FaceTime Philip. We FaceTime Philip. He is in bed, shirt off, with a wet rag across his forehead. And
Felt
that
good.
was when I knew. That was when I knew my buddy was not feeling tip top.
Yep.
So we quarantined him for a little bit. We sent him home. He's fulfilled his required. This is, I believe, day 11 or 12. So he is back in the fight now. Other than a little bit of a cough, he's doing okay. And I said, hey, it's time to get a podcast.
Let's do it.
And today's episode is going to be on what I would say is the ultimate entrepreneurial mind. There's a lot of entrepreneurs out there, but I think there's one that far surpasses everybody else, and that's Elon Musk. I listened to a interview with him. It was an older kind of a bunch of different interviews spliced together with some of his questions and some of his comments on his journey. And I don't know why, but it was so. I was on the edge of my seat listening to him talk, because he's built things and amassed the amount of wealth that we'll never understand. We can't even comprehend. I've got it on my notes, and I think you saw it. But do you know what his net worth is right now?
I can't read, so I didn't. I mean, I've seen your notes, but I didn't
What would you say?
19 billion.
19 billion. Almost 10 times that. He's worth $156.9 billion.
Okay.
B with a billion. Billion with a
After
B.
taxes, probably 19, right?
Yeah.
Okay, see?
And, for those, everyone knows who Elon Musk is. If you're listening to this podcast, you know who Elon Musk is. Because you're an entrepreneur. I don't know if you'd listen to this podcast if you weren't an athlete or entrepreneur or business owner or something. And if you live on planet Earth, you know who Elon Musk is. Whether you like him or not, I don't care.
No.
I don't care if you like him. But I'll tell you this. There are things that we can learn from him that every entrepreneur should be carving out the mold that he created and trying to copy the things that he's done and what drives him. But anyway, for those that aren't super familiar, he was the guy that founded PayPal. He's obviously Mr. Tesla. He's got the SpaceX program. And to do any one of those businesses would be incredible. But to do all three, it's mind-blowing to me. The amount of bandwidth it must take to be able to manage the businesses that he has. And when you think about $156 billion, I think you need to break it down and say, how much is $1 billion?
Take $1 from $1 billion. What do you have? Because I don't know. How would you say that?
I would say that if you want to look at how much money $1 billion was, it's taking $1 million and making 1,000 stacks of $1 million, and that's 1 billion.
Yeah.
So take $1 million, multiply that by 1,000. That's 1/156th of what he has. It's crazy, right? And we could talk about that lifestyle all day long. Like, what's it when you have that much money? What is it even? Does it take value away from? I mean, do you ever get any pleasure in buying anything? I would say no. I mean, I would say that nothing. There is no pleasure of. But
the pleasure wouldn't be buying it because you were able to afford it. Probably the pleasure would be you got something new that nobody else has yet, or like you got
but there's
the newest of the new, or you got something. But as far as like the excitement of, I can afford this,
that's gone.
That's gone forever. Gone. You can't afford it.
I wish I could pay off my mortgage, and he's like, I've got $156 billion. Gosh. It's crazy. So, but let's talk about a couple things. The first question that got me going, and I actually have this written on my computer screen, underneath my computer screen on a Post-it note. He was asked, what words of encouragement would you give an entrepreneur today? And without even skipping a beat, that's not a question that you're prepped for. I mean, I guess you could say that, he knew he was going to get asked that, but his ability to formulate just coherent, well thought out, structured comments is really incredible when you listen to him talk. But he didn't even skip a beat, and he said, I would tell them that if you need words of encouragement, you shouldn't be an entrepreneur. Don't become an entrepreneur. And that's so true. If you're somebody that needs that reassurance, needs somebody to say, hey, you're doing a great job, man. Keep up the good work. Then you're in the wrong business. You need to go work for some other company that has a hierarchy much above you. But when you are...
And they dang sure ain't going to tell you you did a good job usually.
Well, maybe.
Maybe. It depends where you're at.
Yeah, it depends on where you're at. More than if you're the boss.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Who's getting, who's patting in the back. But I think that's something that we need to recognize, because we all, whether we know it or not, we like that approval. But you're just going to have to understand and accept the fact that it's no different than being a kid. When I was a kid, I wanted to have my dad's approval, or my mom. I wanted her to be proud of me. We find ourselves chasing those things because we like that. We want to be thought of approved by other people. And I think over the years you realize that other people's opinions don't really matter. And no matter how much you can say that, at the end of the day, it might not bother you, but you still would like to think that people think highly of you.
Yeah.
But he was just, his thought process was, man, listen, if that's the question that you're looking for, you're asking the wrong question.
Yeah.
Because an entrepreneur shouldn't be waiting for words of encouragement. And he talked about how, creating a company was like having a child, and he never ever thought about quitting or folding or any of that. And he related it to, well, that would be like a parent saying, you know what, it's too tough. The kid thing's not going to work out. I'm going to get rid of him. I'm going to get rid of Philip. It just didn't work. And it's funny because most people don't look at it like that when it comes to business. They don't look at it like, man, I would never give up on that business. And he, right from the start, looked at it differently, as in, he said, as a matter of fact, he said, they asked him, how close did your company come from going bankrupt? And this is a guy that's worth $156 billion. And he said, we had it worked out. It was single digit. We had single digit weeks remaining before they ran out of money. And he was borrowing friends' money for rent. He went to his parents. He went to his friends. He went to anybody that would give him money. I mean, it didn't matter. He swallowed every bit of pride that he had. And he did everything he could to keep that company afloat. And I wonder, there's the flip side of this, which are people like, man, at some point when you're on a sinking ship, you gotta save yourself and get in the life raft. And his life raft was non-existent.
Yeah.
He knew that this was going to go all the way, and it was going to take him with him. take him with it, or he was going to be successful. And imagine, I would love to have been a fly on the wall during those last 6 or 8 weeks that they had left, when it started to shift around, when it started to come back around, because that's a swing right there. When you go from, man, we almost didn't make it, to
Imagine that feeling.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah, and he actually got choked up. I've never seen the guy choked up about it, but he actually got choked up about it when they said, hey, back in 2008 when you guys were almost under, what was that like? And he had to stop, because it was such a real emotion for him. And he talked about it. He said 7 days a week, I slept in the factory. He worked in the paint shop. He was in the assembly team. He was in the body shop. He was doing everything. And he said, you shouldn't do that. You can't work that hard. So here's a guy that has reached the pinnacle of success, was looking back and said, hey, I know there's people that want to follow my footsteps, that want to use me as an example, but I'm telling you, don't do what I did. And I thought that was really, really interesting, because a lot of people are like, oh, you got to grind and hustle and all this. And they use all these stupid buzzwords that don't mean anything. And he's like, listen, man, I don't think you can't live like that. You can't sleep at your job for 7 days a week. I did, and I got lucky and I made it. He says no one should put this many hours into work. It's not good. It's very painful. And the interviewer said, what do you mean painful? He said, my brain hurt, my heart hurt, because I cared so much about Tesla that it just consumed me. And man, I think when I look back to, and I am not by any stretch of anyone's imagination comparing my journey to Elon Musk. Okay, I'm not. But I remember Vitality starting and how consuming it was for me and my thoughts. And every waking hour that I had, I spent trying to develop Vitality and develop this business. And he said the only reason it worked, and this is what really clicked, is if you love what you do. If you love what you do, then you can hang on. But he said, what did he say? He compared starting a business to eating glass and staring into the abyss. He said, starting a company is like eating glass and staring into the abyss. And he says, when you first start a company, happiness is high. Issues then happen, and then happiness will start to decline. Eventually, if you succeed, in most cases you won't, but if you do, after a long time, you will finally get back to happiness. And I would imagine that if you asked most entrepreneurs that made it, that have been successful for, let's call it 10 or more years, they would 100% agree with that right there, about when you start, you got this high of, man, things are good. You're optimistic about the future. You haven't ran into any big problems yet. You've either got the funding, or someone has given you the funding, or you've created the capital you needed. There's no financial issues. But then the dog days hit, and you start to get hit with problem after problem after problem, and it sucks the happiness out. And now you're miserable, you're broke, you're tired, and you just have to wait. You have to wait. And if you keep doing all these little things, all those long hours, then maybe, against all odds, you'll be happy again at some time, a long time from now.
Most people won't wait till then.
I wonder if Elon Musk could talk to brand new young entrepreneurs and say, hey, here's what you're signing up for. I wonder what I would have said. I wonder if he would have said, hey, look, man, here's what your process is going to look like. And I bet you could have got pretty close to the process. And he said it's going to take 8 years. We'll call it 7 years. 7 years before you're out of this and you're kind of settled in. I wonder what I would have said. I wonder if I would have been like, man, you know what? Maybe this isn't such a good idea.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of people that probably need to hear that.
Hey, man, 7 years from now, you can pay yourself
Yeah.
out of your business. Like, what?
Yep.
7 years? I need it like next week.
Yeah. It's crazy. And that was the first thing he said. He said, when you start a business, he had 3 things. He said, you better have a high pain threshold. And I would equate that to like a risk profile, like a pretty high risk profile, because you're going to have to take some risks and it's going to be painful. And if you're not prepared for that, he says, you're doing the wrong thing. And the second thing he said, which was interesting to me, and this is how I equate the fitness business. You've got to make sure that whatever you're doing, the product or service is great. If you're a new company, unless it's a brand new market, which the fitness world, I'm gonna talk about our business, which is the business of fitness. Unless we're a new market, which we're not, it needs to be great. It can't just be a little bit better. And that's what he says. A lot of these companies, they start with a product that's just a little bit better than the next guy's. Well, here's the problem, he says. The consumer is always going to buy the trusted brand unless there's a massive difference. So when these people create companies that are just a little bit better, they can't compete with an entrenched competitor that's been in the trenches, that's been fighting this fight for years and years and years, and now we're the new guy trying to compete with that. It doesn't work. I would equate that to somebody opening up a gym a mile down the street from Vitality. Could they have better coaches? Could they have better programming? Could they have a better facility?
I don't think so.
Well, okay, but let's assume they can. I think they can.
Yeah.
I think that someone could do it better than us, and that's that thought right there is what keeps me coming to work every single day. Is somebody out there is doing it better, but let's say they opened and they were just a little bit better. Well, they still have to compete with the fact that the new clientele is going to have to make a choice between someone that's been around for 11 years and someone that's been around for 6 months. And that's a very tough thing to compete with. So when he came up with Tesla,
Yeah.
it made sense. That the rationale he's talking about made sense, because electric cars are a little bit different than gas cars.
Yeah, just a little.
Just a little. You going and getting 360 miles in a vehicle versus my 10 miles a gallon, a little different.
Yeah. Shocks versus no shocks.
Yeah.
It's a big difference.
Big difference. So that was something that I think everybody can relate to.
I've seen that with McLaren, I think. They just released their electric sports car, whatever it is. I think it's a Ventura or something like that. And they made it a quarter. It's a quarter of the normal price it would be. They're trying to make it a little lower so they can compete with Tesla.
Well, here's the problem.
But you
When you
can't
look
really.
at Tesla and you just listen to the stories of Tesla. I saw there's a truck, there's a new electric truck that's coming out, and I can't remember the name of it. I just looked at it a couple weeks ago and I forgot about it. But anyway, they're trying to come to market, and there was an article in the New York Times about all the challenges that they've come up with distribution, with manufacturing. Well, here's the problem. What difference now can you be other than a manufacturer to Tesla? Tesla has been through this. Their R&D has already figured out all these problems that these new people are going to stumble upon. How do you compete? Are you gonna go buy a first generation whatever, or are you going to buy a Tesla that's $10,000 or $15,000 more, but you know it's Elon Musk, and you know that they've fixed all the bugs.
Yeah.
It's when you say it like this, when he says it like he does about it's got to be great, can't just be a little better. That's so it makes so much sense, but we don't think about it like that. And when people think about, oh, I want to go do this, I want to go do X, Y, and Z, well, that's great, but it's the same as 500 other people that have already been doing this for so long. It's going to be that much more challenging. So that made a lot of sense. And the last one was, I mean, again, something easily talked about, but very difficult to adhere to, and that's constantly seeking criticism. And he says a well thought out critique of what you're doing is as valuable as gold. Seek that from everyone you can, but particularly your friends. Usually they know what's wrong, but they don't want to tell you because they don't want to hurt your feelings. It doesn't mean they're right, but they could be. And he's always taken the approach, instead of being defensive, which I'll be the first to tell you, when I get criticized, I work very hard to not become defensive, but I do. I get defensive. He says, I've always looked at it as if they were right, and my goal is, he says his goal is, they're right, he's wrong, and his only goal is to be a little less wrong. Like, how do I shift that? If that's what's happening, how do I fix it? And that's a really hard thing to do because, again, entrepreneurs, we have our brains are built a little bit differently. We almost feed off of people's disbelief in us. So it's so easy to hear criticism and just completely ignore that because and use it as a driving force to go even further against that. You know, you think about, I mean, I don't care what anybody's political views are. I don't care. But look at what's happened in with Joe Biden. He gets in, and everything that the previous administration did, he's undoing. And and Trump did the same thing when he got in there. So it's these people that they have these huge egos, and they're just trying to impose their will instead of saying, you know what, maybe they've got some good ideas. I'm gonna pick and choose which ones. Well, now for the last 8 years, all we're doing is, you know, having a big peeing contest, and now we're all paying the price for it as I'm getting gas at $2.70 a gallon.
Yeah.
Because people can't handle criticism, and you can apply it to anything. You can apply it to any situation, and I think people will be able to relate to that. But you know, those three warnings that Elon talked about: have a high pain threshold. He talked about making a product great, not just a little bit better, but great compared to the competition, and constantly seeking criticism. Those are three things. Those are three action items that I think we all can take right from this day forward and improve upon, because I'm not convinced that anybody is great at handling criticism, and we can always develop a higher pain threshold. You would agree with that?
Yes.
As we try to do that every day at 1:30.
Yeah.
We all do. Do you think there's going to be a limit to your pain threshold? Do you think you're going to reach a boiling point?
No.
I don't think so either. I think the only thing that changes is the ceiling. We think we hit it. We're like, oh, there we go. It's as good as we're going to get. It's as strong as we're going to get. That's as tough as we're going to get. And then someone comes along and pushes a little bit harder, and we're like, oh, interesting.
Yeah.
We got a little more. So we can all improve that. And, you know, as far as a better service, well, a little late in the game for that if you're already launched your business, but here's a good thing. Let's pivot for a minute and talk about Noble. You know, while you were out, the game's got a new sponsor. Are you aware?
Yes.
Noble. I haven't done my research on Noble yet. I don't know how old of a company they are, but I know they're in the infant stages compared to a company like Reebok or Nike or some of the big players. I'm very curious to see how they are set up to handle this.
I bought on their very first launch. I was one of the first customers.
Have you had a good experience?
Yes, every time.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard great things about it. We got a bunch of shoes for the coaches here. I didn't, just because my feet are kind of narrow and I'm kind of particular with my shoes. But we've had a great experience so far. I'm just curious to see. They come to market. You look at and you apply these principles. I wonder how high their pain threshold is, because I promise you this: there is going to be some bumps in the road when it comes to distribution and manufacturing, because they're going to have to ramp up massively to support the 16,000 affiliates.
Yeah. I'm sure their sales have already went up.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
But now it's just a matter of can they keep up? Can they keep up? This will be a really cool kind of study group to look at and say, okay, how did Noble handle this?
Reebok was big already.
Think about how big Adidas Group was.
But yeah, how big they were
Huge.
before.
They had distribution set up in all across the country, all across the globe. Now you're looking at Noble, and you've got some obviously smart guys. Don't get me wrong, girls and guys running it, but they're going to have some challenges, and it'll be really cool to see. I think back to Rogue Fitness. Remember when, I remember hearing the story of Bill starting Rogue Fitness. And now all of a sudden he is just juggernaut running the fitness world when it comes to equipment. All these people, they took this risk and they leveraged a relationship, and here they are. I think that will be very interesting. I think that when you talk about criticism, let's see how Noble handles criticism, because I've seen a ton of memes already. Yeah. Talking about how expensive they are.
A lot of people don't know. I think the owner, the one or two guys, whatever it was, that started Noble, they used to work for Adidas or Reebok or something in the design and all this. They were higher ups in the company, and then they left, started their own thing, and it was Noble.
Yeah, it's interesting to me.
It was Adidas, Reebok, something like that.
You wonder, you're in the limelight now.
Yeah.
And when the wall walks came out for 21.1, all the memes came, and they said, "Oh, you're going to get these $180 pair of shoes for wall walks," and it was funny. I wonder how funny that will be over time, because there are people out there that I'm sure want to see Noble fail. I don't know why, but there are people out there, and that will be interesting to see how they play into that with the criticism. So we'll watch that. I
know my buddy Jim isn't very happy. My friend Jim Healy, he's a huge Nike guy, and he hates anything but Nike.
Yeah.
He started a Nike Metcon Tribe Instagram. Have you ever seen that?
I have seen that.
It's got like 300,000 followers or something. Yep. He runs that. That's his.
It's crazy.
Him and like Noble and all these people go back and forth, like making memes and jokes and whatever. But he runs that. He come up with that at Northlake. Just because he's so hardcore Nike.
When you can look at these, I just love. It makes me think so much about when I listen to these interviews with really successful people. You apply it to different scenarios and situations, and I think just thinking through those things, it's just good. It's just, I guess you can call it breaking a mental sweat. Is just somewhat running through the gauntlet of what that would be like and what the challenges are, and so yeah, this was more of a just kind of, hey, kind of stay the course, because we see these extremely successful people, and sometimes we don't see all the the downs that they went through.
You see that? A lot of people be like, "Oh, it must be nice."
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't when he almost went under.
It wasn't when he, are you sleeping at your gym or your studio or whatever, making sure that, your lights stay on? Or are there people out there now that are struggling, that are saying, oh, woe is me, but they're leaving at 3 p.m. They're working out 2.5 hours a day. They're eating out every night, spending money. And I think that Elon Musk makes a lot of sense. If your family was struggling, would you just throw in the towel and be like, I got a bad egg on here? No, you're going to do all these things. The same thing. If you don't treat your business like that and say, you know what, I'm going to do whatever it takes to be successful, and you give yourself an out, like I hear that all the time when we talk about consulting with other box owners. People will say, well, I've got a second job that I do on the side. Well, until you get rid of that second job and you take your little safety chute away, it's never going to work.
It's like Eric Thomas said. He said, you see the people, I think it's the circus, where they're walking the tightrope or they're doing the trapeze and all that, but they got that big net down there. He said, that's cool. That's really awesome. You're very talented to do all that. He said, take the net out.
Yeah.
He said, I want to see you do it out the net.
Yeah.
He said, then I'm impressed.
Yeah.
He's like, people live like that. They always got this safety net that they can fall back on. He's like, do it without the net. First of all, you'll treat what you're doing way different because you don't have the net no more.
Yeah.
He related it to like at the circus.
I like that a lot. I think people, it's in our DNA to always have a backup plan to a backup plan to a backup plan, but you lose your sense of urgency. You lose that ability to hold your feet to the fire and say, you know what, I got no other options.
Yeah.
I
know you're not a huge rap guy.
Really? You do, what gives you that impression?
I just don't think you are.
What do you? Okay.
Because normally when we work out, your choice of music.
What am I listening to?
Beach music.
Carolina beach music? Okay.
I don't know if you know the guy NF.
NF.
No. Okay.
No.
Nathan Fierstein, whatever.
Doesn't sound like you know him very well
I can't
either.
pronounce his last name.
Okay.
He has a song. It's called Options.
Okay.
I'll send it to you.
All right.
And in the chorus, he's saying his options are, I got to make it or I got to make it. Those are only two options.
Yeah.
There's no, I got to make it or I got to do this. It's, I got to make it or make it is the chorus in the song.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. I think you would like it.
I don't know if I'll like that. I like the idea behind it. I'm a big, I kind of like Creedence Clearwater Revival, that type of thing,
Okay.
But options sound like a good one.
A good option, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And you talk to people now where this generation is all about, hey, if I'm not happy, I'm going to go do something else. And they're just bouncing from one to the next. And they don't stick around long enough. As soon as there's a down, as soon as there's some challenges, they're out. And that's why I've said it on probably every podcast. That's why I love fitness so much, because you're going to get slapped in the face in pretty much every workout, and you have to make a decision. Am I going to curl up in the fetal position and feel sorry for myself? Or am I going to figure out a way to get through? Yeah, maybe afterwards I will.
Darn it, I'm going to finish it.
Yeah, and I think that's just kind of a mindset we have to take. And there's a lot of people out there that are rolling the dice with things, and I love hearing about entrepreneurs that bet on themselves. I'm working with a guy down in Tennessee who selling his house, using the market to an advantage. Getting a great deal on his house so he can free up some cash to go buy a building. And he's going to go through some challenges. He's going to go through some really tough times. But this risk that he's taking, the bet that he's putting on himself, will change the course of his life and probably his kids' lives. And I think that as long as you have the right mindset, we bet on ourselves all day long. I'm not a big bet in the stock market guy. I'd rather bet on myself. So, or I'd probably bet on Elon Musk.
Yeah, I bet on him.
If there was hey, do we think Elon Musk is going to make it? I'd be like, I'll put some money towards him. I woke up this morning figuring out what I was going to put in Charlie's oatmeal. Elon Musk woke up and was like, I wonder how much closer I am to getting people to Mars.
Oh my gosh.
I thought I had it pretty tough. I didn't know, was it raspberries or strawberries? Was it peanut butter? Was it sun butter? I didn't know.
Quick creator.
I didn't know. And he's up there trying to figure out
I can get there.
how to get a rocket to Mars with people on it. Hey, I'll tell you what.
Didn't he do the rocket thing, where you could reuse it?
Look, man.
He did some kind of rocket thing. Correct me if I'm wrong, somebody, but he invented a rocket that you could reuse somehow for NASA and something else. It was some kind of. I'm like, what did he do? There was something like that.
I'm pretty sure that my co-host for the Built by Vitality podcast may have been on some medications that were not approved. But yes, if you'd like to comment in the post below, maybe you could help us out a little bit.
Stand by.
Guys, this is the Built by Vitality podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We will put the rocket research in the bottom. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Find us on all listening platforms. Until next time, take care.